A couple of years ago, a time that had now become known as the pre-COVID dynasty, I had the opportunity to go to Nepal and Kathmandu in particular. And it was to go with my son, who was doing a youth leadership lecture, and I was really just going to carry the bags and help out where I could. And to cut a long story short, when we came to the end of our visit, we had one day to go. We had an invite to go and visit in the foothills of Nepal a safe house for girls who had been trafficked around the brothels of India. If I'm honest, we were very tired and we probably went because it was the polite thing to do. But as it turns out, it was a visit that was to change my view on things, particularly of slavery, and opened up my eyes to the horrendous difficulties that these girls had gone through. And I got talking to the lady who ran the safe house, who had herself been trafficked around the brothels of India and had escaped, and had now committed a life to running this safe house for other girls. And as I spoke with the girls, God began to speak to me about what I should be doing and what I could help in this work. And I came home with that thought ringing in my mind, wondering how I could get involved in this kind of thing. And even my wife had noticed it had brought about a change in me. And as I was thinking and praying about what I could do, I talked with two friends in Scotland and shared with them what my thoughts were. And they suggested I talk to a lady in Romania. And they just said, "Have you ever heard of Monica in Romania?" Which seemed strange to me because it's like somebody saying to somebody else, "Have you ever spoke to Kevin in England?" And I just thought, what does that really mean, Monica in Romania? Anyhow, they told me that she ran a safe house just outside Bucharest for girls who'd been trafficked around Europe. And perhaps if I rang her, she'd tell me what she was doing. So I got a number and I rang Monica and I just said to Monica, "Can you tell me something about the work you're doing in Romania, particularly with girls who have escaped traffickers in the sex trade?" And she politely said to me on the phone, "No, Kevin, I can't tell you much about it, but if you come and live with us in the safe house for a few days, you'll see it for yourself." And so, with my wife's support and help, I immediately got a ticket. And literally within days, I was on my way to Bucharest. And I finished up at the safe house. There's about 12 girls living there who'd escaped the clutches of the traffickers. And I sat with Monica and she told me some of the stories. But then I got talking with the girls and I was amazed and humbled as to how open they were with me. They shared real intimate details about the difficulties they'd gone through, and they were horrific. And I don't want to go into too much detail now because I don't know who the audience is, but if I can tell you that these girls had experienced years of being tied into a brothel, and they were raped 48 times every day of their life. That I'll go into in more detail if people want to talk to me about it. But as I spoke to these girls, I just began to realise the evil that is in our society. And I knew God was saying to me, "Kevin, this is something I want you to be involved with." And so I had a second visit to Bucharest and I talked with Monica and I said, "How can I help?" And she said, "Well, there's two things, Kevin. I've got a project which I'm looking for somebody to sponsor, but also I want you to see the sharp end of what we do." So the project she presented me with was, she had a sponsor in Holland who was providing 4 small safe houses that could be erected on land in Bucharest, and they would give them free if she could find a sponsor who would pay for the transportation of these buildings and the erection of them on the land in Bucharest. And I said to her, "How much would that cost?" She said approximately £15,000. And on this occasion, I knew this is something God wanted me to do. It's not something I often think. This is quite a rarity for me. And I just said to her, "Get them ordered. I'll find that money." And she said, "That's great." Then she said to me, "Do you really want to see the sharp end of what we do, Kevin?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm here for." So she said, "In the morning, I'm going to court. I'm taking 3 girls with me, and we are prosecuting 14 traffickers. and it's going to be extremely difficult. I'd like you to come and see it. So we had a prayer meeting that night because this was serious business. The next morning I got up at 7 o'clock and there was a very sombre atmosphere in the safe house. The girls had gathered for breakfast. They were frightened. They had to go to court. They had to face these traffickers. And Monica said to me, you need to ring your wife, Kevin, and ask her to pray, because today we're going into Satan's territory. And I have to confess, I was getting more than nervous by this point. And we discussed what the day ahead would bring. She said, when we get to the courtroom, the traffickers will be at the front door and they'll try and intimidate us. And your job, Kevin, she said, I've got a social worker with one of the girls, I've got a psychologist with another, and I'll be with the other. Your job is to go in through the front door and just gaze and stare at the traffickers and take their attention away from the girls as we get them in. And by this time, I was really fearful. And as I was walking up to the courthouse and I saw them ahead of me, I just prayed. And the story of David and Goliath came to me. They come to you with swords, but you go to them in the name of God. And this had an incredible impact on me. And to cut a long story short, we had to face these traffickers all day in court with the intimidation, and you could feel the presence of evil in that courtroom. Monica and I just stood in the centre of the courtroom, and she prayed in Romanian. We prayed for the girls and we prayed for the traffickers. They knew exactly what we were saying. And this experience changed my life. At the end of the day, Monica, I was going to the airport to fly home. And she warned me, she said, be careful, go straight to the airport, stay in company of others, don't be alone, because you don't know whether these traffickers will follow you. What I have to say in summing up is this experience changed my outlook on what prayer is really about. Do we really pray expecting God to intervene? Do we ever step out of our comfort zone and rely solely upon God? And I just want to say to anybody listening to this video, being on the front line isn't for everybody. I understand that. But as Christians, we need to fight the evil of our society. And those who are on the front line, those who are facing the traffickers, they need your support. They need your help. They need your money. It costs money to do this kind of work. And I'm appealing to individuals and to our churches on the district. You can't support everything. You can't get behind everything. But if there's any individuals watching this video or any churches that feel this is something you want to help with, then come and talk with me. I'll be more than happy to go in more depth and to more detail about the work that I've committed myself to for the foreseeable future. Thanks so very much for watching and listening to this video. I hope it inspires some to join us.